This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show, and I'm here with Andy Six of Black Veil Brides. How you doing today, Andy?
Doing well.
Looking at the crowd reaction from you just walking out here, how does that make you feel?
I think the kids connect with our image more than any, obviously our message is very prevalent, but I think that, the image and the idea of there sort of being a band that looks like rock stars is sort of lost. And, the only bands that have any sort of image are sort of niche bands. They're very specific subgenre bands. And we try to appeal to a more mass audience and bring back the idea of, bands like Motley Crue and Kiss and these sort of larger-than-life characters. And so when people see us, they react that way. To them, we are, characters. Andy Six is sort of a superhero in a sense, as opposed to just a regular guy.
What is your IQ?
What is my IQ? I'm not aware of it. I choose not to test myself.
You seem like overly intelligent. You seem like you actually could have done anything with your life, and that you just chose to be a rock star.
I wasn't told that in school. I was never, I actually dropped out of high school in my second year of high school, and I never found. I grew up in northern Kentucky, and the schooling system just really didn't fit with me very well. And I think that ultimately education is something that can help a lot of people, but I think that the smartest people are the ones that can educate themselves. And intelligence is sort of it is what it is. If you can see something and you can research something and you understand what it means, then you're intelligent to that subject. General knowledge is sort of it's necessary, but I'm more knowledgeable in what I do. I can be in a rock and roll band. I know how to make that work. So anything else is sort of superfluous.
But you actually handle yourself in a very professional manner, and you've mapped out your future in a very tight way.
Well, yeah, I think that, I knew exactly what I was going to do at a very early age. I think that rock stars are not, shit from the sky. They're people that work very hard and they create what they are going to be. And so very early on in my life, I saw, Gene Simmons and Nikki Sixx and these other people, and I said, that's what I'm going to be. And, at the behest of everyone else, I think that I did what I was going to do, and I told people that, because ultimately when you say that to a school teacher, you say that to someone and, you're growing up with, they go, oh, well, you don't understand, that's not how it works. You're from northern Kentucky, they're not rock stars that come out. And I'm like, no, you don't understand, this is what I'm going to do. And I did it, and, I'm going to continue to do it, and this is my life. And I see no ceiling for Black Veil Brides. I know that Black Veil Brides will be the biggest band in the world. And I think that, it's with the help of our fans and the people that support us the most that I can be confident in saying that. I mean, you're looking at a band that had no mainstream support whatsoever and put out a record on a tiny indie label, and it shot up to the top 40 in the Billboard charts in the first week, and it's testament to our fans. And so I can look at you in the camera and say that Black Veil Brides will be the biggest band in the world, and I know that when I say that, it's true.
What would you say your original inspiration to put together the Black Veil Brides was?
I think a culmination of things. Ultimately, the feelings that I had in my life were sort of the stories behind the songs. But like I said, these influences that I had, the Misfits, Dead Boys, The Damned, Lords of New Church, the more like punk rock bands. And then obviously the bands like Kiss and Motley Crue and LA Guns and the big sort of larger-than-life sleazy bands. I wanted to kind of make a band that could represent those two things and maybe have more of a message that was, relatable to today's youth. The one downfall that I always had with bands like Motley Crue and Kiss was that, although very interesting visually, I could never really relate to the music on a personal level. So I'd always sort of hoped that there would be a band out there that could do that, and I think that this is that band. This is my favorite band. If I wasn't in this band, I would be listening to this band. Fortunately, I'm in the band though, so I get to perform on stage as a member of Black Veil Brides every night.
How did your image evolve?
I think that we all sort of have our own characters that we do every day. I mean, my face and the way that I look is my character. Andy Six has a very specific image, to the point where I wanted that. I wanted fans to be able to, when you say Andy, you can draw what Andy looks like. If you say Jake or Ashley or these other members of our band, you can draw what they look like, or you can dress up individually like any one of them. If you look out there are kids that are dressed in specific, they are the characters of the band. And I think that it's important because as a band, we are, we're rock stars. We're in the rock and roll business. Rock and roll is a disposable art form. We go up on stage and we're, angry and we wear leather and we, have 40 minutes of aggression and then it's over. But it's what you can take away from that show, and maybe feeling that there's some characters or superhero-like characters that you can sort of apply to your own life, and that's what's important.
What would you say your message is to the kids?
I mean, our message generally is just to always believe in yourself. There's absolutely no one in the world that can tell you that you can't do something. You're the only person that can set that limitation. So if you want to dress, like a giraffe and go to school every day and that makes you happy, then do it. It should be up to no one else how you live your life. And we are a rock and roll band. We don't advocate anything that isn't behind the original message of rock and roll. Rock and roll initially was about rebellion and believing in yourself and finding a way to let out anger and aggression through music or loud volumes of music. And I think that that's what we are. People sort of confuse it, and I get a little upset when there are these bands that they come out and they're like, oh, believe in yourself, but only if you believe in Jesus, or something like that. And this band is not, we're not religious, nor are we satanic. We're completely secular. We are a rock and roll band. What I personally believe and what the members of my band believe should have nothing to do with what this music is. And I think that when someone comes to a rock show, they shouldn't really be concerned, nor are they concerned with what church Andy Six goes to. They want to hear us play loud music and they want to sing along to it. And so, our message is always just to be yourself and never let anyone, even us, affect your decisions.
What inspired the name?
Black Veil Brides is actually a Catholic term, which is ironic that I talk about religion, but I grew up in a very devout Catholic area, and I was always obsessed with the imagery. I don't really give too much credence to the religious aspect of Catholicism, but the imagery is so it's very vivid, and there's the Sacred Heart and all these other sort of very gothic, dark images within that religion. And so the name came from my fascination with the devotion that people have to a religion. And a Black Veil Bride is actually when a nun marries into the church, she gives up everything. She gives up the cardinal pleasures of life, and she becomes a Black Veil Bride. And they actually have a whole ceremony where she wears a black veil and she marries God. And I was always sort of enamored by the devotion, because when you're in a band, regardless of whether I believe in the religious aspect of it or not, I can associate with giving up everything for something that I believe in. And I believe in, being in a rock and roll band, so I gave up everything to that end, and I made this my life.
Well, to some kids out there right now, you are a religious figure because they worship you. And it's noticeable when you walk out there, like we were talking about. So, I mean, how does that make you feel that Black Veil Brides may be a religion to a lot of your fans? Well,
I certainly don't advocate necessarily worshiping us as gods, because we are just guys in a band. But I think that if you have to believe in something, I'd rather a kid believe in us than some shitty mosh metal band. I'd rather something that actually has a message and we care about our fans. If they need to believe in something, then by all means I'd prefer it us than like I said, some band that is just there to do calisthenics on stage and put their guitar over their head.
What is your greatest fear?
No, I have no fears. I think that if you live with fears, you block out parts of your life. I have no regrets and no fears.
Do you have a favorite Motley Crue record?
Favorite Motley? Actually, it's funny. I'm gonna say something that not a lot of people understand, but because of the age that I was when it came out, Generation Swine is actually my favorite Motley Crue record.
Really? That's the most off-the-wall, different?
And everyone hates it, and I even told Mick Mars that, and he was a little weirded out by that, because that's his least favorite. Because I've actually been writing with Mick a little bit for his solo record that's coming out.
Great.
And I was at his house one day, and we were talking about stuff and bands, and I was like, so how do you feel about Generation Swine? He's like, oh, don't get me started. I was like, oh, that's actually my favorite. But it's because of the age that I was. I mean, I was the right age to sort of, I got it on cassette, and I was very young when it came out. That was one of the first things that I bought with my own money, and I had. So,
what advice would you give somebody that's contemplating suicide?
I think that it's a very tough thing, because suicide is something that it's sort of. There's two sides to it. A lot of people vilify the idea of suicide because they think that you are, somehow you're hurting other people by doing it, and that is very true. But the thing that people don't really understand about that is that the people that do commit suicide feel like they've sort of hit their last leg and that they have nothing left. And I think it's important to always remember that regardless of how dark things can get in your life, there's always a way to find personal strength. There's so many bands out there that they write songs, and I listen to them, and I'm like, I'm surprised that more people don't listen to this band and commit suicide, because there's nothing in your lyrics that says you can find any strength, and it's not true. I mean, life isn't bad. Life is good. You just have to make it that way, and you have to be able to find strength within yourself to rise out of the darkness. I mean, anyone that, can find something, whether it's artistically or, in their mind or whatever, you can find something to find a way out of the pain that you're in. And that's actually what we have a song, Knives and Pens, which is about my choice that I made when I was around 14 years old to either cave from all the stress that I was going through of getting bullied and picked on and everything else, or to create something. And so the metaphor for me of, knives and pens, it's the choice between, self-mutilation or violence or, being creative. And that's actually, I think, why that song is done so well, is I think a lot of kids can connect with the idea of sort of hitting that final, you're faced with a choice. And I think that, it's the strong people that can rise out of it. You know?
Are there any downsides to your newfound fame?
You know, I don't think so. I think that ultimately, you know, it's like one of my favorite quotes is, you know, it's if you were elected to be president and then complained about wearing a tie. If you're lucky enough to get what you want in the world, shut up and, you know, do it. And I think that, you know, obviously it's what's wrong with me walking out here and little kids screaming? What's wrong with, you know, me going on stage and people singing along? If I can't handle that, then there is something innately wrong with me. If I can't handle the fact that my dreams are coming true, then, you know, there's something wrong. And I understand that a lot of people have stress and they have problems dealing with fame, but I'm way too egotistical. I've been wanting this my whole life. And, you know, the fact that now not only do we have a fan base, but we have a fan base that we mean something to. I think that ultimately that's why it's so cool to me. Knowing that we're not just a band that is popular because of, you know, a catchy single or something, but knowing that our fans, this means the world to them, and being able to make that connection with our fans every night it's paramount. I can't describe anything that could be more important to me.
What inspired the title of your new album, We Stitch These Wounds?
You know, I think that it's sort of a phrase that can be applied to anyone's life. I believe that in life you go through a lot and you deal with things, and we all sort of are left with wounds. We're left with scars of the day. You know, whether you are, you know, you work a desk job, or you're a nurse, or you're in a rock and roll band, or you're just a kid that, you know, is different to society. You wind up, people will try their best to try to take you down, and they'll leave wounds on you. And I think it's up to each and every one of us every day to sort of get up in the morning and stitch up those wounds and go back into battle and live your life. And so the record for us was sort of, you know, the title was, I guess, sort of cathartic in a way, where we, as a band, were able to put out that record, and all of us, we were all the weird kid. We were all the, you know, the punk rock kid, and we didn't have a lot of friends, and we went through a lot in our life, and that record was our, you know, our 12 songs as a way to stitch up everything we'd went through in our past and know that we were moving forward. And, you know, Elvis Costello once said that you have 20 years to make your first record and, you know, only a year to make your second. And for those, you know, 20 years, we dealt with a lot of stuff, and we put it all into that album, and now we can move on, and, you know, that's all sort of in the past now.
How would you define the word love?
I think love is sort of an interesting thing. It can be applied to many different things in the way that I love our fans. I love going on stage. I can fall in love with a woman. These are, you know, but they're all sort of under the blanket of caring. I think that love to me is when you have something that, you know, something so much in your heart that you feel, you know, and heart, I guess, is sort of a relative term. Obviously, your heart is an organ. It doesn't have any actual feeling to it. But, you know, in the sort of glamorized, romantic Hollywood version of heart, there's definitely a feeling that you have inside yourself when you know that you love something. And there's really no way to describe it apart from, yeah, I love that. And I love you.
What inspired your name, Andy Six?
It's actually sort of a culmination of things. Obviously, huge Motley Crue fan when I was a kid. And my dad, I would dress up like Gene Simmons or Nikki Sixx when I would get home from school every day. And I would just, like, prance around in front of a mirror and try to, you know, emulate the moves. And then when I started playing, like, organized sports and stuff as a kid, I would always have my number be 6. So my dad just started calling me Andy Six, and that sort of stuck.
What brings you the most peace in your life right now?
I think, you know, when I get back to our bus at the end of the night and we have, you know, a collection of fan letters, I really like to read the letters and find out what, you know, what kids go through or what inspires people to come to our shows. You know, I think that's the most peaceful moments that I've had in the last year. Has just been when I'm sitting alone reading or writing or, you know, just those kind of things. I'm very, you know, I like to kind of keep to myself after our shows and you know, try to find out more about what makes this band work. You know, because this band doesn't work without our fans. So I have to know them on a personal level for this band to happen.
The rock and roll lifestyle, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Do you subscribe to that?
You know, I think that there's obviously parts of it that as a rock and roll band we have to and we enjoy. But I don't do drugs. You know, I don't have rampant sex. You know, I think that ultimately rock and roll is important to me, and I like the lifestyle and I like to have fun, but I've never been interested in you know, any of those things, in the sort of weird accoutrements of being, you know, a crazy rock and roll star. I think that in the times that we live in today anymore, it's not necessary and it's not pertinent to what our fans believe in. And I would never try to preach to someone that does do those sort of things. But to me, it's not important. What's important to me is, you know, the shows and having fun and you know, having a good time with my bandmates. But I've certainly never been into drugs or, you know, any of those sort of things.
What's next for Andy Six and the Black Veil Brides?
World domination. taking over the world one day at a time.
Andy Six, it's been great having you on the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show. This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show with Andy Six of Black Veil Brides. Signing off.
Blairing Out show.